if you want to know truly what my thesis is on the future is, we don't care anymore about celebrity. We care about community. And the legends that we're going to be writing books about in 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years and talking about it in 1,000 years are here right now. You're seeing them tweet, you're seeing them on Clubhouse, you're seeing them on TV, you're meeting them in the street, you're meeting them this and that. You don't even know it yet.
What up, Alejandro? How we doing?
¿Qué tal, Matt? So excited to be here today. Who do we have on the show today?
Man, we have got Farokh Sarmad. You know, we've got the king of Clubhouse himself. You may know him from Instagram. You may know him from the drop rooms that he is continually hosting on the platform of Clubhouse. He has become one of the most important fixtures in the NFT community. I mean, did you really have a drop if Farokh wasn't in your room?
It's a great question.
Well, we're excited to chat with him today about so many different topics. Without further ado, Farokh. Farokh, so happy to have you on the NFT Now podcast. I know that you have an amazing story. You come from the Instagram world, the marketing world. You've become a force on Clubhouse, really at the forefront of culture. Tell us a little bit about how you got into NFTs. What was your NFT journey?
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy that we finally made it happen. I know it's like bouncing back and forth, playing tag here on the schedules, but listen, I'm super happy that we're making this today. And how I found out about this space is actually really funny. So I'm an internet kid, as you mentioned. I'm 26. I started my business at 18 based around Instagram and social media, marketing, branding on there, because I was always a believer that traditional marketing was dead. It was moving there. Right. And I've been making memes since I'm like 13 years old. So I was always one of these kids like in the internet, but I was never like someone who went into the crypto space. So I built my business in the mainstream media and in the mainstream world and everything. I always dabbled in that, all while always having an interest in an intriguing interest and a curiosity towards cryptocurrency. Always a firm believer, always someone who wanted to research, but for some reason, it never got into me. Meaning like I never took the leap, right? Like I never said, okay, you know what? I'm trying this. I'm doing it. I'm putting my money where this is going, and I'm in it. I just was always sort of in the sidelines, and at the same time, I was also seeing everyone around me just crush it there, and I was always fascinated by it. So, I tell this story last week to a friend of mine. I was like, yo, like I knew about Ethereum in 2016, and like everyone was like chatting about it in our Telegram chats for like Instagram growth hacks groups, right? Because we were talking about growth hacking algorithms. Obviously, this whole crew was early also into cryptos and stuff. And they were telling me, and I was always a believer. And I told myself, oh, I'll get in tomorrow. And I never ended up doing it, right? Which is a big mistake, a regret. But in my opinion, I'm early if you zoom out a bit, right? So the way I got into the space is I've always built a following on social media. I have 13 million followers and counting across pages on my Instagram. We have the largest luxury and real estate distribution network in the world on Instagram. So my main page is Good Life, just hit 2 million followers 2 days ago. 150 million impressions in a month, 200,000 follower growth. So I've always been doing that. But then I saw Clubhouse at the end of 2020. December 28th, 2020 is when I did my first Clubhouse room. And the second I got on, I saw the power of that social platform. I was like, this is literally going to revolutionize the world, the industry, everything as a whole, and even the way we communicate as individuals, right? Clubhouse already changed my life in a very big and great way with connecting me to people. And then out of nowhere, I mean, one of these nights we're chit-chatting, we're talking about collectibles, cards and everything with my friend Buster and a bunch of other people, right? About literally just all things collectibles, but also this thing called NFT, digital collectibles, right? And at the time, I honestly did not know what it was, although always dabble in the art space since I'm a kid. My mother used to take me to art galleries or around artists. The house is full of art and stuff like that. But I'd never really gotten in the NFT space, or even I was just so new to the crypto space, right? And so that one night, something crazy happened. I mean, the room went from having just 9, 10 of us chopping it up about collectibles, ended up becoming an NFT just like frenzy. Like that room is iconic. Like a lot of people remember it, like Ferocious, in the early stages, the Artifacts guys, like Zapso, everyone, like all these people are crushing it today. Everyone just stormed into that one room, 1,000 people, 2,000 person room. You have people from the mainstream world, like the global head of Nike Tax Day, and from the crypto space, the NFTs, like it just became one big frenzy. And that's when I found out truly about what NFTs are, right? Like the whole, and then the second I saw that, I just knew, we were heading toward this digital revolution, and that I always knew that this was coming, but I didn't know it was in the form of NFTs. And it's amazing because to me, the digital revolution that's happening right now is just crypto heads, like crypto OGs and internet kids. That's where I am, getting together, pushing the same boat through NFTs, which is art. And it's the most beautiful form of self-expression. And when I saw that, I just had to get in. I mean, I dropped literally everything I was doing the next morning. I said, all gas, no brakes. This is where I belong. It's the same feeling I got in my heart and my stomach in 2014 when I moved to Instagram, in 2011 when I built my Tumblr. And when I get that feeling, nothing can take me back. Everyone was so passionate. Everyone was so smart, well-spoken, that there was a community already around it that was being built. And I in my head, I missed the crypto early boat. I wasn't missing this one. And I'm really happy today. It's and I'm proud of it too. Like some people say, yeah, you're not OG, not 2 years, 3 years, but it doesn't matter. I'm here and we're all part of the same team now. And I find that really amazing what we've done in just 3 months in the space.
Dude, that's an amazing story, man. And I love the ownership of missing out on the front and the forefront. And like you said, you got to zoom out to see that this is still very much the beginning. So like if anyone's thinking, to our listeners, that if you think you're late, look, even Farouk right now just told you guys, this is just the beginning. So Farouk, like you mentioned, you touch point on a lot of things, but specifically Clubhouse being this like juggernaut of culture in the NFT space. Like, what do you see the role of Clubhouse being?
All Clubhouse does and has done before the NFT space, we were already running really big rooms. Like, I already had a large following there before I even dabbled into the NFT space. There's one thing Clubhouse does: facilitate and accelerate the network effect. If you're listening to this right now, actually, just hop on Google the network effect. What Clubhouse has allowed everyone to do in a time where we're all locked down, but even forget that, it's allowed us to connect with so many people around the world at the same time and have constructive conversations around topics that help us push the topic forward, learn and grow together. So that's what got me so into Clubhouse. And the reason why I think all of this is happening there is because it's allowed conversation. It's allowed access to mainstream. It's allowed access to people. It's allowed just the promotion, the vocal promotion of the space. I mean, from what I heard, the NFT space was heavy on Twitter before, heavy on Discord. And when I hopped in, like the only interview and like podcast I got on before yours is Whale Sharks way back then. So I met him on that stage too. That's how crazy it was, that stage. It was like everyone just pulled up. And I was learning about this Whale Shark guy and this guy, this Ferocious, and the Artifact. It's funny because I've known Artifacts actually for 5 years. We come from the same space. We're all internet kids. I'm actually full circle with half of the people I met I've known for years through Instagram marketing, this and that, right? Clubhouse just allowed that. It allowed all of us to literally get back together, come full circle. We have this space, we have this world, we have this universe, this metaverse, and we're just all pushing it together. That's what Clubhouse has done. Clubhouse is nothing but a service, right? It's not just a product, it's a service. And it's served us in the way that it's connected us together. And we can now have roundtable conversation about so many topics, different things, or promote things to the masses through Clubhouse. Because I'm a Instagram maxi. Let's put it in crypto words, right? And I always said it in my bio on Instagram, still says married to the gram. I don't care how cheesy and corny that is. It made me. I started my business with $200 and a dream. I went from 0 to 10 million followers on Instagram in 2 years. My first 2 years in business went all in, right? So to me, I owe it to the platform. I'm so grateful for it, right? A free platform. And then I saw Clubhouse similar. I mean, Clubhouse just echoed me even further, right? And it's just like, that's exactly what it does. I mean, it's your most powerful tool that you have is your voice. You guys know that. You run a podcast, right? It's stronger than a tweet. It's stronger than the photo. It's stronger than the video. It's that powerful voice that people have that's amplified through Clubhouse. And that's really what got me so passionate about the platform. And I'm still very passionate about it. And I don't plan to stop anytime soon. I think it's the perfect intersection of NFT and Clubhouse. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, man. Look, I think, everything you're saying really resonates with my experience as well. Clubhouse was where, I reconnected with so many of my friends from like the dance music world after Billboard Dance. That's where I reconnected with Blau, who was the one who introduced me to NFTs. And that's where I had the exact same light bulb moment that you had, where I was like, this is going to change everything forever. And, I think that it's something that's really special about Clubhouse. It breaks down those barriers and allows us to kind of like interact with not just people that we haven't seen in a long time or people we never thought we would, but have them all together at once and create this really interesting like melting pot dynamic. I've been in obviously a lot of your rooms, and I already some moments stick out, but I'm curious to hear from your perspective. What are some of the most standout moments that have happened where you just have to like pinch yourself and I know it happens like multiple times a week at this stage.
This is the hardest question you can ask me out of all of it. This is like the trickiest question because I don't even know how many rooms we've hosted so far. We grew the NFT club to be the fastest and the biggest, fastest growing and biggest NFT club in the space. It's actually called NFT. When you look up NFT on Clubhouse, the first result, 30,000 members and followers in a month. And so it took a lot of rooms. There's moments I almost cried, and I'm not the type. There's moments where I died of laughing and the joy. There's moments like, for example, one of the moments that stands out is actually from David Bianchi. So he's a poet, and it was the first ever spoken word NFT in history. And it was through David Bianchi has made a short film for George Floyd called I Can't Breathe. Very emotional. And came to us and said, hey, I want to sell my short film as an NFT. And then Paolo was like, hey, why don't we help you? And 100% of the proceeds, not one of those 10, 20%ers, 100% of the proceeds goes to George Floyd Foundation, which was actually, that drop was during the trial that just recently happened, right? And so I just said, okay, I'll host the stage. Let's do it. I just started calling a bunch of people up, and we had 4,500 people in the room. That's very hard to get to if you know Clubhouse, right? And most rooms will just get 100, 200 people. And when David Bianchi started saying the spoken word, and we were all repeating the names of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all the names, and it was just such a moment. I had this shiver that came down my spine, and the energy transfer that was between like 50, 100 speakers that were on stage was so phenomenal. It was one of the most beautiful moments. That was like one of those cry moments. But then you have moments where like we've had so much fun, or you're thinking about like when you're hosting Ferocious for one of his biggest drops on Nifty with Artifact Studios with the sneakers, and you're hearing like his passion, his story as an 18-year-old that he lived on his own, and he made this happen, and his art, he's allowed to express himself at such a young age. That's for me is a beautiful moment, inspiring me, because I'm 26, but I was that 18-year-old. Like when I started my business, I literally incorporated my business at 19. I started at 18. Like to me, it's like, it's just, I feel so happy to know that the next generation is already even more entrepreneurial than I was at 18 years old, which is amazing, right? Or just as I was, right? Or moments like now on the celebrity side, like we have, Calvin Harris, right, doing his first drop. Like what I like is I don't really prep for my interviews when I get on Clubhouse. I sort of like just go and shoot the shit because I know that what I can get out of people. Like I know what I need to get out of people, but I also know that by being just raw and authentic in the conversation, it comes out of them, right? Calvin Harris was saying like the more sort of like, and don't quote me on that, but sort of paraphrasing, was saying that the bigger he got, the more famous he got, the more disconnected he felt from reality, and that NFTs allowed him to be reborn. And then he felt close to people. Now, it doesn't matter what people think of celebrity NFTs here. The message that came out of this, it was beautiful, is that they're even realizing up top, out there, the people are really, that have a big following and that have achieved a lot. They're like, they feel reborn again through that industry. And that's special, right? There's been all these special moments where it's like, even from the small rooms with 30 people where something happens, and like there's for example, John Legere, like he helped someone, he donated like, I think it was 30 grand one night in an NFT room because someone needed a heart transplant or something. Like it's just, this space brings out the most beautiful out of people and things. And that's what got me to it more. Like first I learned about the community. So I sort of reverse engineered it. I learned about the community. I learned about the key people. I started asking questions to everyone, getting on calls with everyone. Then I got even deeper into the NFT, the blockchain, the contracts, this and that. Like start to understand, because it's a lot to take in at once, right? And now I'm in the stage I'm in. It's just like, if you ask me the most beautiful moment on Clubhouse, I think every moment is just beautiful. Honestly, like yesterday we hosted the first ever tattoo NFT drop, which was actually a very meaningful drop for my world famous tattoo artist. And it was another great moment, but a small room. But it was great to witness that. It's just, there's just so much in the space. It's or like when I get a call from someone saying, hey, second time, but one of the artists, that was sort of helping out, I was like, hey, like a couple weeks ago, he's like, I quit my job. Just want to say thank you. I think that's beautiful. There's a lot of these moments. It's and even the laughs. I mean, I shoot the shit with people in the NFT space all day long, on Twitter, on Clubhouse, on Instagram, on calls, and it's just every moment. Really.
Dude, that's amazing, bro. And then, like, I love the energy that you always bring. I love it's a beautiful day to have a beautiful day vibe, there it is, man. And like, I think these moments that you cultivated have been part of NFT culture, like that they're become iconic. They've been really exemplifying what true community building looks like. You mentioned Paolo in a few times, and we always see him in the rooms. You guys are always co-hosting. What's the relationship there? How did you guys meet? And what's that like to be Clubhouse? All right, so let's rock it. Go into it.
Clubhouse. I mean, no, it's funny because we were just on a call before this one. I usually that's what happens, but it's I've met some of the most incredible people in my life because of Clubhouse. 100%. My future best friend, my new best friends. I don't look at how long I've been friends with someone. I look at the depth of the conversation and the relationship, right? And it's just through so before the whole NFT space came on Clubhouse, we were deep into the Instagram marketing, growth, branding rooms. So we were doing a lot because we're people who have built brands outside of Clubhouse, and we've built brands and followings outside. So we were teaching them. We were doing positivity rooms and happiness rooms, and Paolo was always a prominent figure in that space. I mean, he has a following as well. He's like 60K something on Clubhouse, but it's just like, I was just so intrigued by the guy. Like this first time I heard him speak, like it was just like with his owls and his hawks and his spirituality and this, and then his business savvy. Like when you can hear with the beauty of Clubhouse, it cuts through the shit. Okay, if you're fake, you're gonna last 2 days on Clubhouse because the more you speak, the more things come out, right? It's such a natural free flow, just like right now this podcast. And so one day I hit him up because I thought I liked what he was saying and I love what he was doing. And I'm like, hey, why don't I help you out a little bit with your personal brand? I think you could do certain things better because that's what I am. Essentially, I'm a personal branding expert. And we connected. When you're aligning with people, you can kind of tell. Regardless of what they've done before, who they are, this and that, you connect with someone and you're like, you know what? I can trust that person. I think we can move together because there's no point at moving as a solo. This podcast shows that you guys are two. You tag team everything, and that's why you're successful. So yeah, I mean, this is what happened, and what happened actually, which is funny. Paolo indirectly is one of the reasons why a lot of these Clubhouse rooms are happening. One day, puts me on the phone on a text thread with Matt Colon, who's Steve Aoki's Blouse and RSC's manager. He works for the management company. And he's like, Matt, meet Farouk. Farouk, meet Matt, make the Clubhouse happen. And I'm like, let's go. Steve Aoki. I always wanted to host, like my goal in Clubhouse was always to be a prominent host and bring conversation to the platform, bring celebrities, bring artists, that was always my goal on Clubhouse, right? And so I'm like, I'm not going to stay in a Steve Aoki interview. And also it's interesting that he's entering the NFT space, right? Regardless of what happened after this and the stuff, but it was so new, right? It was such a new thing, a new space. Nobody could have known what happens with open editions, this and that at the time. It's like, it was the wild, wild west. Remember, February was like nuts in March. And so, man, I mean, he puts me on the phone with Steve Aoki's guy. Next thing happens, same week, we make a Steve Aoki Clubhouse room. That was the first Clubhouse drop room we really did. 6,000 people pull up to the room the whole time, 38,000 total viewers over 3.5 hours. That ended up being actually one of the most beautiful conversations and moments ever on Clubhouse. If you ask me for the top 5, it has to be there because it's the first one we ever did. And it's the one that started all of the drop rooms you're seeing. Like it literally set a precedent for drop rooms. It was crazy. The energy beyond the NFT. We had people from Andreessen Horowitz in the room. We had people from Clubhouse in the room. We had people from the biggest NFT founders, co-founders in the room, operators, owners, artists. We had the Clubhouse figures. We had people like me, and it was, so he made that happen in the back end. And then, so that's who Paolo is. I mean, he's a super connector. That's who he is, super connector. He knows a lot of people. We're aligned on a few things. And I like the whole spiritual. I like that, like all of a sudden he'll hang up on me because he saw a fucking hawk in the sky and he's taking a photo and then he calls me back, sends me the photo. Like, this is so like, this whole space has brought out the child in all of us. And I think it's the most beautiful thing. So that's what it is, man.
That ties in super, super well. And I just wanted to say, like I remember that Steve Aoki room well. Steve's a friend, Matt's a friend. So it was, that was a great moment.
But we did back to back. Sorry, I forgot to mention. We did it on a Friday and then we came back on Sunday with 6,000 more people.
Yeah.
For the drop. And you remember the drop and the results for themselves, and we're flying.
Totally.
Clubhouse became NFT land.
Yeah.
After that. Yes, let's go.
and like you said, I think that set the precedent, and it was you and Paolo really at the forefront of that. But you two are creating a lot of value in the space. You two are spending a lot of time on platform, and so I know you two are also entrepreneurs. So I wanted to get a sense for what is the business model? How do you monetize this?
I mean, it's interesting because so I told you I come from a media space, right? So in 2014, I was scratching my head just like this, and I didn't have long hair like that, but I was scratching my head, and I was like, how? Because I was already deep on social media, but I had no money, and I had been doing social media for 3 years. I grew the biggest Tumblr luxury page on Tumblr called Mr. Good Life, which is now Good Life on Instagram. I was scratching my head in 2014. I said, everybody's doing this. At school, everybody's doing this. I am doing this all day. How do I make money from doing this? And so I was looking at billboards, TV, this and that. I studied television, right? And every time there's an ad, I either go to the bathroom or I go grab some food or I switch the channel. I'm skipping the ad. Nobody watches TV ads. That's why Netflix, all these things are so prominent, right? But there still is a need for marketing and demand and ad space, and it's never going away. The medium is changing, just like cryptocurrency. The medium is changing. Banks, fiat, this, Bitcoin, Ethereum. So it's just like, it was just changing, and I saw that. So I brought the ad to Instagram. I started cold calling, cold emailing hundreds of companies every day. I was growing an Instagram. I was like, hey, I'll sell you a shout out for this and that, right? So similar mindset to that, right? Fast forward 7 years, 2021, the mediums change. Clubhouse and the product has changed. NFTs, right? But it's more than a product. It's a whole digital revolution we're in the middle of, right? So how do you build a business amongst that in an industry that is being built as you're walking? Because Instagram was already built. It took me a while. Actually, it happened most recently. Again, this last weekend, I had another enlightenment where I was like, I really never been more confident and understood my place in this space. So for a long time I came in recently, but I came in very big, as if like I caught up on 3 years of missed opportunity in 1 month. And so when you're at the intersection, even Blah one day I was talking to him and he's like, yo, just so you know, I don't know what you did or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but you put yourself in the best position there is, right? The intersection, literally. How do I become the bridge, right? How does the bridge not only make the world a better place, but also can make money out of it, right? Because no matter what you do, you've got to eat and you got to build a business. When you spend your time on something, it's only fair, right? The way I think my place in the space is here, and honestly, the way you build a business around all of this is by really trying to find solutions on how to bridge both worlds. How do I bring celebrities, influencers, and artists of the physical verse, right, into the metaverse, into the NFT space with respect and acknowledgement of the space? It's not a reversing. It's not, they don't owe them the respect. It's the celebrities and stuff that have to learn how to enter space. So putting myself in the middle, where I'm at is building a media company out of all of this. So media brand, media company. I'm technically a platform, right? When you think about it, like launching a rocket platform for things, right? For Clubhouse, Instagram, Twitter, and all that good stuff, but also a consulting advising firm that allows me to not only consult people in that space, but again, crypto space that are not familiar also with social media and branding. I mean, I speak to a lot of collectors. And I'm really blessed to have spoken to a lot of great collectors, right? O'Shiny, Danny, Seed Phrase. I've become tied like this to Amir Mondoir. Love Amir. I mean, we've teamed up with Amir, kind of like it's like Paolo, Amir, and I now, right? So I love that. And Whale Shark, and then the Tim Kangs of this one. It's like even these people, when you look at it now, the collectors and even the artists, they need to brand themselves. Right. So it goes both ways. So my solution here is just build a business that's right in between the two and help the space in that way. That's what it is. That's how you come in. It's building a media company, it's been a consulting advising firm, and it's building a platform, right, that helps serve the space. That's how I see it. And as you can see, it's always rotating in my head. I'm always trying to build further and trying to see what I can do. I really had a moment this weekend when I was thinking, is like, what am I doing in this space and what do I want to run with for the next couple of years? It's too hard. It's too dynamic. But in the meantime, that's what I think it looks like.
That makes sense. So you're sort of thinking it as almost like a full service, like agency of yourself in a sense.
That's what I've always been doing, by the way. But if you need 100,000 follower growth, authentic, raw, real community, you call me. If you need to get into a bunch of press, you call me. If you need advising, consulting on how to build your proper brand, find your messaging, find your why, dive deep, and then market that, you call me. Like, this is what I've always done. So I'm trying to build that, but in a bigger way now in this space, like all on chain. And I think it's so freaking cool.
That's super exciting. And I feel like you know, just as an example, I'm sure you get this question a lot, but, you know, now that with the frequency of drops and there's so many NFT artists, you know, dropping all the time, I'm sure your services are in high demand. How do you, like, you know, if someone's coming to you saying, hey, like, we want you to do a Clubhouse room for the drop, like, how do you sort of, like, is that one of the services that is included under that umbrella? How do you sort of curate between and
we actually built a team now. It's more than even one person. Like, we have like analysts researching things, and we've sort of like, we're closing out partnerships with a few people that are strategic partnership with people in the space, which I was doing even before this call, to find out like sort of how to like position people properly. But yeah, like, it's what does it look like? I mean, the thing is, it's so dynamic that you can't even like put a set firm price to it. Again, the space is moving. I mean, look at how the fluctuation of prices even in crypto, right? So the space is moving like crazy. Gas fees are moving like crazy. So that also determines a lot of the drops. And yes, you're right. I mean, there's so many drops every single day. And honestly, big ones, small ones, interesting ones. There is a point when I almost burnt out for the first time in my life. That was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I felt it to the core. And it's because you have, you know, 689 unread texts, right? And I don't know how many unread tweets, because I'm also a personal brand, mind you. Like, I also have to take care of my own personal. I run my own personal brand: Twitter, Clubhouse, Facebook, Instagram, like all that. Because I do me on my own, right? Like what I'm doing with you guys right now, right? And so at the same time, you're getting hit up by all these people, like whether it's massive, like every single A-lister, I guess, or B-lister people from that mainstream space, kind of like they get referred to us. And then also now great and amazing projects and artists, which is what I'm personally more interested in at this time. Like, I'm so deep into that. This is what I want to host as much as possible, are also coming to us. Like, how do I find the perfect happy medium to make everyone happy, but at the same time, again, you got to build something out of it, right? Or else you get nothing out of it. You know, I love to help. I love to build community. I want to push further, but you need fuel to keep going, right? And that's exactly how it works. So, or some people, they come to us, they already have everything ready, the drop mechanics, this, it's done. They just need marketing. So what's marketing? Clubhouse is not, it's not like, oh, we're just doing Clubhouse. Clubhouse is just a medium. You know, I call people, I get them on mainstream press, get people on on Instagram, like we get them, you know, marketing to Instagram, Twitter, and Clubhouse is not a medium. Just Clubhouse is the best medium right now because you get to be live, you get to converse, but it's really literally, it's nothing new to what I was doing before. This space is all about collaboration. We are literally reversing the way we have been taught to function. But the thing is, it's not new. In 2011, we were growing Tumblr pages with my friends. We already had that mentality. You know, it's the beauty of it, and I love that. This is really what it's all about to me, and it's and everybody should really, really think that through. And before even entering, just say, what can I bring to this space? Everyone's got to play their part. I think everyone's got to give back a little bit. Just
I love that filtering question, man. What are you going to do for the space? I think that's a lot of us in the industry can ask ourselves that on a daily basis. One thing that I love about you, man, and I'll touch base on this a little bit afterwards, but like your spirituality, your sense of alignment, your divinity, your devotion to your faith, you know, how you speak openly about everything. And I just wanted to highlight that. We'll touch base on it as well, because I see our listeners can probably pick up from your conversation from the 1111 shout out, the numerology alignment. It's pretty dope. Within the space though, you know, you have so much flooding coming in. How do you differentiate what is hype and what is sustainable? And how are you making sure that the branding, the elements, the platforms that you do continue to build sustainability? And how do you create that balance?
So I've never been better educated than today, but as a matter of fact, we weren't always educated. I'm sure I've hosted a couple hype groups. I'm sure a couple of jobs we worked on were hype, right? But it was never the intention. And now but a lot of them, 99.99% of them were phenomenal. And it's so interesting. I mean, I love hosting Fuck Render, Victor Mascara, Thank You X, JN, the Made by Adam Squad. I love hosting when I was hosting Young Jake entering space, and we're drawing shitty emojis and stuff like that. I love all that stuff. When I did even because 2 days ago for the Christie's, or yesterday, I'm lost in days. When was Christie? Yesterday? 2 days ago? Anyways.
2 days ago, I think, but
2 years ago? Oh,
very,
2 years ago.
very
Okay.
easy
so 2 years ago. All right.
you know.
That was 2 years ago. So 2 years
yeah, exactly.
ago. So 2 years ago, but you know, I made a room for punks and non-punks, and we were like 25 punks in there. and CK Sweat, who used to be an auctioneer at Christie Sotheby's and Phillips. So he knew that. And then someone called Todd that was ex-Sotheby's from the traditional entrepreneurs for 35 years. And we hosted a conversation like, this is dope. So how do I funnel through, like see through like hype and not hype is that it's important to team up with people that are aligned, but also come from all spaces. I know where I come from. I know where he comes from. He's a large collector. He knows what he's buying. He knows what he's seeing. He knows, or I ask also questions to other collectors, other crypto people. I do my own research now, right? I always did. But it's just, I think it's easy to see through the hype. I think it's easy. I honestly think it is. I'm the hype generator, bro. You know what I mean? I'll create the hype. It's just about the proper project. You know what I mean? When you think about it, like if there's a right project that deserves a lot of hype, because hype is not bad. Hype is good. Just hype has to go towards the right people, the right projects, the right minds. That's all.
Yeah, I really love that that selective hype, man, and then that filtering process, and the humility that you bring into that. You know, understanding that you are creating hype, that you may not have gotten it right in the right place in sometimes, and you're learning from the experience. I know that you've had between us, we've had a little side chats on iMessage. You had an incredibly powerful week last week in terms of some things happening in your world through MetaMask and things of that nature. And I want to touch on that because you have an incredibly powerful spiritual practices and awareness to the elements. Like I always say, all business is spiritual, but you are really the poster child of that. You know, like I love your hype. I love the way that you bring the divinity, your faith, your spirituality, your alignment. Let's segue these two into one. So what happened last week with the MetaMask wallet? What occurred? How did you process it? And then really, how does spirituality how do you bring in spirituality practices into your business? Because you don't do the business of spirituality. You are spiritual who does business.
Right. Yeah. I'm not going to sell spirituality. Fuck that. Wow, you did it. So here's what happened. I mean, exactly on this chair like this, I had my iPad here, but what you guys won't see is I have a monitor behind it. I was on FaceTime and you know what, because of what we've been talking about, obviously it's just blowing up. So too many texts, too many emails, too many Zooms, too many this, too many that, running too fast, Clubhouse rooms, Twitter, this is that. So always bye this. And what happened is I thought my Google Chrome actually seemed to have a malware in it. And actually, matter of fact, a couple of days before, someone hacked into a couple of my things. So it seemed to have a malware in it. So what I did is I just went and I reset the Chrome browser. And mind you, I don't come from this space, even though I understand the importance of that seed phrase. But so I made the rookiest mistake of rookies. I mean, you know, the reason why I didn't tweet about anything is honestly, and I'm going to say here, I was ashamed of myself. And I still am. I thought I was a fucking idiot. Like the second day it happened, I just looked at myself. I was like, you're literally an idiot. Because it's the one rule you don't break. It's the one thing you don't do. So what happens is I reset my browser. And when I went back and we downloaded MetaMask, it asked for a seed phrase, obviously. And I just can't find it. And I know I wrote it down. I know there was a screenshot somewhere, even though you're not supposed to store it in a screenshot or cloud. I get that. So people can say, oh, you're not. But still, there was, I know when I made it. I know the hour, the time, and the minute I made the MetaMask because Zapsio was gifting me a 1 of 20 Artifact Studio Atari collaboration, friends and family only. It was my first ever NFT. And he gifted me that on that day, March 3rd, 2021. It's the day I made my MetaMask. And there is no trace of a screenshot, an email, a text, a phone, nothing of that day. It goes from March 2 to 4 on my computer. And my phone, there's nothing. It's like that day doesn't exist. And so I lost my seed phrase. It was 12.1 Ether in it. So that's what, 50 grand now. And all of my NFTs. What hurt wasn't the ETH, even though that sucks. But what hurt, but I can always work. Like money comes. I made money from $200 I had. So I know I can make it again. But yeah, it hurt. I had just bought this beautiful Meebit number 934 that looks just like me, just a little darker. And then I had my ape, which was 6250, which is 19th rarest ape in the whole. Then you can put your own value to that, I guess, right. But I think it was worth a couple
in that up moment. There. In that moment when you like had the acceptance, right? Because at first you're like, no, it has to go.
No,
you go
denial.
through the search.
So here's what
right.
The process. So like, all right, let's
walk through that process.
See, I had brushed it off. Now you're bringing it back. But after this, I'm done. Here's what happens. I'm on FaceTime at the same time. So the first is the non-realization. I have to do this. And that's what happened. It taught me to calm down, slow down. It's funny because my mother has been telling me for the last couple of weeks, slow down, slow down, slow down. You're going too fast, slow down. But to me, it's like, I don't realize these things because I'm just going. So it's like, here's what happened. At first, it's the non-acceptance, not realization, not acknowledgement, not understanding. Then comes the search. 15 hours of recovering files, calling all the biggest crypto native heads that I know, going up to, like, I was already ready to go find someone at MetaMask, and I wish I did, but there's no point. Like, in the words of Amir, is the whole reason why the Ethereum blockchain is so powerful is that you can't hack through it. You can't find a seed phrase. If you could find that seed phrase, then the whole network is at risk. Even when and reached out to the co-founder of OpenSea, Alex Atala, who's a good friend. I love him. I got to meet him as well. It's a great man. And he called me and he was like, listen, nothing you can do, but I'm happy to just shut down that account or put something saying, because people keep sending me art as gifts. Like, I keep waking up to new like art pieces, and you know, people send to your collection. So I needed him to just say, like, this is not Farouk anymore or whatever, you know, so he can do it, but there's nothing he can do about the pieces, right? So first comes that, then comes the research, the recovery tools, this, that, the putting all the place upside down, going through my phone. I still have that 1% hope in me, in my heart of heart, right? That is somewhere. It has to be. It makes no sense because it makes you write it down to make it. The day after that, I got a punk. Because you know what? I'm not going to let that story that I'm telling right now be the story that defines Farouk.
Love that.
I went in, I saw floor punk at 19.5, even though the floor is lower now, which is ridiculous. But, you know, I sniped it. Kind of looks like me too. I had been looking at him for a while. I had been looking at punks forever. I've been studying, understanding, learning, talking to punk owners like G Money and Alan, a bunch of people. I mean, you're one of them. I've been learning from all y'all, reading about your tweets and everything. And it's just like, you know, and I went in because that's not the story I'm going to tell. That's not the story that's going to define me, Farouk. The story that's going to define me is this. I'm all into this space. And the punk is the ultimate symbol of the space. It's the OG, it's the rookie card, it's the starter, it's everything, right? We saw Christie's. And so that was my bounce back. And there's no better motivation. Every time I look at my phone, which I live in, I'm motivated. And I look at that punk and I look at what it's opened up and what I'm doing with it and what the whole space, and I'm motivated. So to go back to your question about the MetaMask and everything, and my spirituality and how I see things, how I do things, that's how, man. That's exactly how. I just bounce back because there's no choice. I have two choices. Dwell, stay depressed the rest of the week, and set myself, like you said, one day in the metaverse is 1 month outside. So set myself 5 months back, 5 weeks, however you want to quantify that. Or stand up, step up to the plate, and keep going. And I'm going to keep going. And ever since I did that, bounce back, it's fine. I mean, then there was the whole question of, do I still own the NFTs? Right. So I asked them, actually. I said, hey, and that's been in my mind. That's why one of the reasons I actually removed my ape from my profile pictures, because I felt like a fraud, even though I paid for it. And that's a good, I think, question for everyone is, do you own it or not? And his answer was, they'll live and die with you. Technically, I'm diamond hands. Even Alex Atala was like, now you're diamond hands forever. And I thought that was funny. And you own them, but just don't leverage them for anything, because that's fraud.
Right.
But you own them, right? You can put them in your profile picture, this, that, but don't leverage them. Don't use them because anyways, you can't connect them. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. I never talked about it because I don't want people to shame me, like crypto people. I'd be like, yo, you're an idiot. That's the one thing you had to write down. I'm sorry. Like, no, like there's nothing I can do about it. So what? You know what I mean? Like, hey, look at me. I bounced back. I got a pump, you know, like, let's go. You know, let's get going.
Well, Farouk, from one punk to another, I actually think that there's certainly no shame in that. I think everyone in the crypto space has learned that lesson at one point or another, myself included.
I realize
that. You know, yeah. I bought my first Bitcoin and Litecoin back in 2013. Put them on a software wallet, wrote down the seed phrase somewhere. 4 years later, when the waters rose, tore apart my room. I know when you're talking about the search, I've been on that search. I know exactly what you're talking about. I managed to find it finally for the Bitcoin wallet, not for the Litecoin wallet. thankful that's how it worked out. But, like I went through those feelings of shame and those feelings of like, I can't believe I just didn't keep this safe, and I think that it sucks. There's nothing.
But it's happened to so many people. My boy Troy was telling me, he wiped out a whole fucking hard drive, like disk, whatever you call it, of Bitcoin back then, like multiple Bitcoins. Like, and then I spoke to Danny. Everyone had a story.
Everyone has a story, though.
Exactly.
You know what was beautiful, Alejandro and Matt, is people were like, I'm hurting for you. Yeah. And I could feel that they were like, and they're like, even Alan and something like, how can I help you? How can I? I'm like, it's good. Let's just keep going. Everyone's like,
moving, man. That's what I love about you, bro. Like, you're always looking forward. You're like, yes, I accept, and let's move forward, man. And
there's no point. Like, I've had worse shit happen to me, dude. Like in the real fucking world. You know what I mean? Like, it made me realize, if anything, like all that ETH I amassed in just not even 2 months. Like, it's like that means I can do it again.
Amen.
That means I can work hard and go at it. That means you can just, but it sucks. It sucks, but it's you have to accept it. And back to your spirituality question that ties all to this, that this is why I want to mention that. It's in my bio on every single platform, and I wear this. This is it. And by the way, my Genesis piece has been ready for weeks now. I don't think I need to drop something. Yeah, I did collaboration with a phenomenal female fine artist and everything. I had a vision, and we just get live, and another artist animated it. But point being, this is what I live by, live with and live by. I've been wearing this necklace since I'm 12. I had 3 different ones. One of them got lost, stolen. One of them got lost in the water, of all places. I was laying on the dock, ripped off I kind of got up and fell. And the third one is this one that was made in Iran. And this is the symbolism behind this: good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And if you look at my IG bio, Clubhouse, and Twitter bio,
you live it, bro. You live it. You live it.
So, and I literally, the moment I started, because I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person. And the second I started embodying that very same thought, good thoughts, good words, good deeds, everything I do, every tweet I put out, every post I make, every room I host, every business I get in, every contract I sign, every podcast I get on, always have to be aligned with good thoughts, good words, good deeds. That's always what it has to be. And I wish more people live by that. If you focus on those 3 things, you're literally going to be successful financially and professionally.
Yo, man, I feel like we could keep talking all day, but to close things out, you're talking with so many different, important figures in the space all the time. I'm just curious, what are you seeing trend-wise that's exciting you? Where do you think the space is going? Like, what about the future is like really speaking to you right now?
I mean, it's such an exciting space, right? Even if you just saw the Christie's auction, 17 million, we know there's some people that seem to think it was well presented, some not. I wrote on that too, but it's it's still a big number, and it's a big deal, right? And next month is Sotheby's, and you're seeing a lot of like traditional mediums come into the space and sort of like work together with the NFT space and come together and build something bigger. I think that's what's amazing. I mean, I'm seeing mass adoption, integration. I mean, I was thinking even like, this is so much bigger than even just the art. Like, this is a whole movement. This is a whole space. This is a whole, like, even like when you get what's marriage, right? When you get wed and you get married, it's a social contract, right? Those contracts are going to start living on chain too. They're going to, the vows, everything, they're going to be starting coming on blockchain in form of NFTs, right? Even like, I mean, anything. It's just we're headed to a world that's fully, I believe, fully on chain. And the NFT space is only driving that. And it's just like, when you ask me where I think we're headed and what I'm excited about everything. If you want to know truly what my thesis is on the future is, we don't care anymore about celebrity. We care about community. And the legends that we're going to be writing books about in 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years and talking about in 1,000 years are here right now. You're seeing them tweet, you're seeing them on Clubhouse, you're seeing them on TV, you're meeting them in the street, you're meeting them this and that. And you don't even know it yet. We don't care anymore about celebrity. We care about community. And the legends that we're going to be writing books about in 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years and talking about in 1,000 years are here right now. You're seeing them tweet, you're seeing them on Clubhouse, you're seeing them on TV, you're meeting them in the street, you're meeting them this and that. And you don't even know it yet. I might be one of them as well. And we don't know it yet. And that's where we're headed. We're headed towards a world that has completely shifted and has focused on how good someone is, on the good thoughts, good work, good deeds, rather than how much money they have, who they're hanging out with, how big they're on social. I guarantee you, people don't care about that I have 100,000 followers on Clubhouse and 13 million accumulated on Instagram and this and that. People care that I bring good energy, that I bring positivity, and that I keep pushing the space forward. The second I stop doing that, I'm going to become irrelevant. It's the same thing for all of you guys. It's the same thing for everyone in the space, right? You see people come and go, they're washed out because there's drops every day. There's a new platform that comes out every day. There's a new media that comes out every day. There's so much going on, right? So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about how we're the new fucking rock stars. I mean, I've been calling it forever, but but we're good ones, you know. I genuinely think that. So I'm really happy we did that. I'm really happy that you guys really helped amplify my voice. I'm so grateful. It's so weird being on the other side now that I'm usually the one now interviewing. It's funny because I wasn't an interviewer nor a speaker before Clubhouse. I was not a speaker, and it's awesome. So yeah, I'm super excited for what's to come, the future, and how we're gonna change the world, because we are changing the world.
Likewise, man. Super excited to continue that conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the NFT Now podcast, man. We're happy to have you.
Thank you, brother. So glad to have you,
We'll
my
see
man.
you on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Wow. Alejandro, that was quite a conversation. What stood out to you?
Matt, talk about a conversation indeed. What really stood out for me is how consistent Farouk really is on and off social media. Like, you get what you see. You see what you get with Farouk. I also love the spirituality behind everything he does, like his celebration of 11/11, his celebration of do good words, good deeds, good honors. Like, that's just really profound, especially in a space that's so digital. I really appreciated that. And also, one of my favorite parts was just hearing him talk about the business of the business side of things on that front, and seeing him go through losing his rite of passage of losing his wallet, right? I feel like everyone in this space, anyone who's ever done anything in the crypto space, has lost some form of crypto or some form of seed phase in some way, shape, or form. And just seeing him move forward in that capacity really cements who he really is, not only in an NFT space, but as a human being in general.
Yeah, I agree totally. I thought that was really cool of him to be super vulnerable, to chat about that. I think that we've all experienced things like that in the crypto space. I think most people have, and there's no shame to it. I loved hearing his perspective on how he takes his platform from Clubhouse and scales it into a business, thinking about himself as a full service agency, his relationship with Paolo. It was just great to get behind the scenes and, get to see that energy. It was also fun to see him being energetic, because I always hear him, it was nice to actually see it, get that visual. But it was a great conversation. Thank you everyone for tuning in. NFT Now podcast. For those of you who haven't yet, go check out our newsletter, nftnow.substack.com. Always updating you with the latest in the markets and in the projects to know. Thank you again.